Does technological development transform human beings? This hinges on a polysemic concept, transform, whose different meanings lead to radically different, contradictory answers. The verb to transform covers at least 3 distinct significations. Each meaning redefines both what we understand by technological development and by human beings, and raises specific philosophical issues. 1. Transform as quantitative change or variation. In this first sense, transform simply means to modify in quantity, to intensify, amplify, or diversify properties already present in humans, without touching their essence. Technological development then appears as an extension or prolongation of human faculties. The tool multiplies the strength of the arm, hammer, the engine multiplies the speed of the leg, car, the computer multiplies the calculating capacity of the mind, AI. This echoes Marshall McLuhan's famous thesis, technologies are extensions of the central nervous system. The human being remains the same, but its performances vary. It runs faster, sees farther, knows more things. Issues raised. Is this still a real transformation? Is a quantitative variation truly a transformation, or merely an increase? Aristotle already distinguished more from better. Does accumulating speed or memory change the human being or leave it identical to itself? Risk of illusion. Humans believe they are transforming when they are merely delegating. Does the smartphone transform my memory or simply make it superfluous? Counter-argument. These quantitative variations can eventually produce a qualitative threshold effect. When the amount of data processed by algorithms exceeds human comprehension capacity, are we not entering a new mode of existence? In this first sense, the answer leans toward a moderate yes, yet the question remains open: at what point does variation become something else? 2. Transform as mutation, change of form. Here, transform means a radical change of form, structure, or even nature. It is the passage from one species to another, from one essence to another. The Latin transformare indicates a crossing of form. Technological development no longer merely augments, it reconfigures the human being. Examples: the body becomes cyborg, prosthetics, neural implants, brain-computer interfaces. Consciousness becomes delocalized, digital life, avatars, collective intelligence via networks. Humanity moves from the reign of the natural to the reign of the artificial. Gunther Anders wrote, "Man has become obsolete." Major philosophical references. Heidegger in The Question Concerning Technology. Modern technology is enframing. It transforms humans into standing reserve, into a resource to be optimized. Humans are no longer subjects, they become objects of the technological dispositive. Transhumanism explicitly embraces this mutation. We are entering the post-human era. Biological humanity will be surpassed by augmented humanity or artificial intelligence. Issues raised. Who decides the new form? Is the mutation chosen or imposed? Question of consent and power. Loss or gain? If humans become something else, do they remain human? Hannah Arendt speaks of the human condition. Does technology destroy the plurality, natality, and mortality that define humanity? The mutation can be seen as supreme alienation or as liberation if man is something that must be overcome. In this second sense, the answer seems to be yes. Technological development does not merely change humans, it metamorphoses them into a being whose identity we can no longer guarantee. But this may just be an illusion. 3. Transform can also be understood as accomplishment or realization. A third, more teleological meaning, transform here means to fully realize what was already present in potency, to complete, to actualize an essence. This is the Aristotelian sense of entelechy, passing from potency to act. Technological development would then be the means by which humans finally realize their vocation. Liberation from arduous labor. In Marx' 1844 manuscripts, the machine enables the realm of freedom. Access to universal knowledge, enlightenment, technology as progress of reason. Creation of a world proportionate to humanity. Ernst Cassirer sees humans as animal symbolicum who realize themselves through their tools. Contemporary example, biotechnologies make it possible to cure, extend life, choose one's children, humanity finally realizes the old Promethean dream of being like gods. Issues raised. Is accomplishment an illusion? Heidegger replies that technology, far from accomplishing humanity, diverts it from its authentic being by reducing it to calculability. Ambiguity of the self realized. What kind of human is being accomplished? The economic human, optimized for productivity, or the contemplative human? Technology seems to accomplish the economic human while stifling the poetic human. Final paradox: if technology accomplishes humanity, it makes it superfluous. AI performs all its functions better. Would the ultimate accomplishment be the disappearance of the human? In this third sense, the answer oscillates between an enthusiastic yes, progress, and a tragic no, loss of essence. Problematic synthesis. We must organize a dialectic in 3 moments. Thesis: technological development quantitatively transforms humanity, technophilic optimism. Antithesis: it mutates it into a post-human, alienated being, technophobic pessimism. But there is no transformation. This does not mean transformation. Synthesis or overcoming. The true transformation perhaps lies in humanity's capacity to reflect on this very transformation. It's not a transformation but the development of an essence. Maybe like in the movie, 2001, A Space Odyssey, by film director Stanley Kubrick. First part. Yes, technological development transforms human beings. It's a quantitative transformation that profoundly alters the conditions of their existence. Technological development, from the Industrial Revolution to the contemporary digital era, has brought about a series of massive quantitative changes in human life. These changes do not affect the essence of humanity, its rationality, freedom, or finitude, but radically modify the parameters within which that essence operates: speed of travel and communication, volume and rapidity of exchanges, biological lifespan, amount of accessible information, and so on. Humanity remains the same being, yet it now lives differently, in a world expanded, accelerated, and densified by technology. This quantitative transformation is so profound that it ultimately reshapes the very experience of human existence. 1. Acceleration of rhythms. Speed is a new condition of existence. One of the most obvious manifestations of this quantitative transformation is the exponential increase in speed. Transportation. In the 19th century, a journey from Paris to Marseille took several days by stagecoach. Today, it takes under 3 hours by high-speed train and just a few hours by plane. Communications. A letter once took weeks to cross an ocean. An instant message, email, social media, now travels the planet in fractions of a second. Marshall McLuhan, in Understanding Media, The Extensions of Man, 1964, describes this phenomenon precisely. Technologies are extensions of man that amplify natural human faculties. The telephone extends the voice, television extends the eye and ear, the computer extends the brain, and the ensemble of electronic media extends the central nervous system to a planetary scale. This extension does not add a new faculty but multiplies existing performances. Humans see farther, hear farther, act faster. Consequence: the relationship to time and space is transformed. Modern humans live in a world where here and elsewhere, now and soon contract. This quantitative acceleration, more travel, more exchanges per unit of time, alters the very texture of daily life: permanent urgency, multitasking, instantaneity of relationships. Humans are no longer the same in their relation to the world, because their world has become denser and faster. 2. Explosion of communications and information, a more connected, more informed life. The volume of available information and the ease of exchanges have experienced unprecedented quantitative growth. Before the printing press, access to knowledge was rare and slow. With the internet and smartphones, billions of people have instant access to a quantity of information far exceeding what an 18th-century scholar could absorb. Social networks and instant messaging allow individuals to maintain ties with hundreds or even thousands of people simultaneously. This quantitative increase in connectivity transforms social life. Relationships become more numerous and frequent, but also more superficial, shift from face-to-face interaction to fragmented conversation. Humans become hyperconnected beings whose identity is partly nourished by digital interactions. Without changing their nature, they become beings whose existence is mediated by constant flows of information. 3. Spectacular increase in life expectancy, a longer, more medicalized existence. One of the most striking quantitative changes is the dramatic rise in life expectancy. In 1800, average life expectancy at birth was around 30 to 40 years in most regions of the world, even in Western Europe. By 2025 to 2026, it exceeds 70 to 73 years globally and reaches 80 to 85 years in many developed countries. This progress results from major technological advances, vaccines, antibiotics, public hygiene, modern surgery, medical imaging, biotechnologies, etc. Humans now live longer, which quantitatively transforms their existential trajectory, longer periods of education, extended professional careers, more time for leisure, but also prolonged old age, often medicalized and dependent on technical devices, pacemakers, prostheses, chronic treatments. Life is no longer the same when it stretches over 80 or 90 years instead of 40. The stages, childhood, maturity, old age, lengthen, priorities shift, and humans must relearn how to inhabit a biological time extended by technology. Return to our problematization now. In the quantitative sense, technological development does indeed transform human beings. It alters the scales of their existence, faster, farther, longer, more connected, amplifies their natural capacities without replacing them, and redraws the concrete conditions of their daily life. Humans remain the rational and free beings they have always been, but they are so in a transformed world, a world whose quantitative parameters have exploded. This optimistic, or at least non-tragic, thesis, however, opens onto a further question. Do these quantitative changes remain purely additive? Or do they ultimately produce qualitative effects, crossing a threshold where humans no longer merely become augmented, but truly become something else? Next part. Human beings are not fundamentally transformed. Technology modifies external conditions without altering the essential form of the human. While technological development undeniably produces impressive quantitative changes, speed, connectivity, increased life expectancy, these modifications remain superficial when viewed in light of the deep anthropological form. The human being remains, in its essence, the same finite, mortal, natally born, and destined for death being that the ancients already described. Technology merely covers or prolongs this condition, it does not metamorphose it. Humanity remains mortal, subject to time's corruption, exposed to suffering, and thrown into existence without having chosen to be born or to die. The appearances of augmentation conceal the radical persistence of the human condition. 1. Mortality remains the insurmountable limit. Despite medical progress, humans remain beings toward death. Biomedical advances, vaccines, antibiotics, surgery, gene therapies, etc., have pushed back the average age of death by several decades, but they have not eliminated death as the constitutive horizon of human existence. Even a centenarian dies, death is not abolished, it is merely delayed. Palliative or curative techniques treat pathologies, but they do not eliminate intrinsic aging or biological finitude. Martin Heidegger, in Being and Time, 1927, defines the human being as a being toward death. Death is not a contingent future event, but the most proper, non-relative, and non-transferable possibility that structures all authentic existence. Technology can postpone the deadline, but it cannot suppress this ontological possibility. Humans remain the beings who know they will die, who anticipate their end, and who thereby radically distinguish themselves from animals. Hannah Arendt, in The Human Condition, 1958, emphasizes mortality as one of the two fundamental anthropological conditions, along with natality. Technology can extend biological life, but it does not eliminate the fact that each individual possesses a linear, irreversible existence bounded by birth and death. The quantitative lengthening of lifespan changes nothing about this structure. Humans remain beings thrown into the world, exposed to individual death, and not immortal or post-human beings. 2. The human form remains unchanged. technology alters neither natality, nor plurality, nor corporeal vulnerability. Technology does not modify the structural features that define the form of the human. Natality, every new human is born as an absolute beginning, unpredictable, bearer of novelty. Medically assisted reproduction or surrogacy does not eliminate this miracle of the beginning, they displace or facilitate it, but do not change its nature. Humans remain multiple beings, in relation to one another within a shared world. Social networks increase the number of connections, but they do not suppress the unpredictability of human interactions or the necessity of face-to-face encounter for authentic political action. Corporeal vulnerability. Despite prostheses, implants, and exoskeletons, the body remains fragile, subject to pain, illness, aging, and dependence. Gunther Anders, in The Obsolescence of Man, 1956, points out that humans become antiquated in the face of their own machines. They are no longer equal to the technical power they have created, but this does not transform them into superhumans. On the contrary, it makes them more aware of their ontological weakness. Technology is therefore a supplement, not a mutation. It surrounds humans with a halo of artifacts, but the form remains the same, a finite, corporeal, social, mortal being. 3. The danger of the technicist illusion. Believing in a transformation when the form remains identical. Heidegger, in The Question Concerning Technology, 1953, names enframing or arraignment the essence of modern technology. Everything, nature, objects, humans, is reduced to the status of standing reserve, a resource to be exploited. Humans themselves risk perceiving themselves as a resource, human capital, data, etc., but this reduction is not an ontological transformation, it is an alienation, an occlusion of their own being. Humans remain the same, they are merely forgetting themselves. The belief in a radical transformation, transhumanism, posthumanism, rests on a confusion between conditions of existence and human condition. Extending life, accelerating exchanges, hybridizing the body do not change what it means to be human, to be born, to suffer, to love, to act, to die. Thus, from this antithetical perspective, technological development does not fundamentally transform human beings, it modifies the accidents of their existence, duration, speed, comfort, but leaves intact their substantial form, mortality, natality, finitude, plurality. Humanity remains the mortal being it has always been, even if it lives longer and more connected. This permanence invites us to pose the decisive question: does the true transformation not lie in humanity's capacity to think this non-transformation, to refuse the illusion of a technical overcoming, and to safeguard what in us remains irreducible to any artifact? Third part. Technology realizes rather than transforms humans. Humanity is by nature technical, and technology unfolds its essential form. The preceding dialectic has led us to a dual observation: technology quantitatively modifies the conditions of human existence without altering its fundamental form, mortality, finitude, plurality, yet it does so in such a profound and constitutive way that it cannot be reduced to a mere external accident. The synthesis consists in recognizing that technology is neither a contingent addition nor an absolute threat to human essence, but the expression and fulfillment of what has always defined humanity, its inherently technical character. Humans are not transformed by technology, they realize themselves through it, because making, tooling, and externalizing functions are inscribed in their very nature. Technology is neither against nature nor beyond nature, it is the prolongation and completion of human nature. 1. Humanity is by nature a technical being, the hand, the tool, and externalization as what is proper to the human since antiquity. Aristotle has emphasized that humans are distinguished from other animals by their capacity to produce artifacts according to rational knowledge, techne. In the Physics and Parts of Animals, he observes that nature does nothing in vain and that natural organs, such as the hand, are already tools. The hand is the tool of tools, organon, because it enables the making of other tools. Thus, techne does not oppose physis, it completes what nature leaves incomplete. Aristotle explicitly states that art completes what nature cannot complete or imitates nature while supplementing it. This idea was taken up and deepened in the 19th century by Ernst Kapp in Principles of a Philosophy of Technology, 1877. Technology is an organ projection. Humans externalize their organic functions into artifacts. The hammer prolongs the fist, the telescope the eye, the telegraph the nervous system. This externalization is not a denaturing, but the fulfillment of a natural tendency. Unlike animals, who are adapted to their environment by instinct, humans are maladapted and must create an environment for themselves. Technology is therefore the proper mode through which humans realize their incomplete nature. 2. Technology as teleological completion. From potentiality to actuality. In an Aristotelian perspective, technology corresponds to the passage from potentiality to actuality. Humans carry in potential the capacity to fabricate, calculate, communicate at a distance, heal. Technology actualizes these potentials. It does not change the human form. Humans remain mortal, finite, rational, but allows this form to be more fully realized. The hand, a versatile organ, enables prehension and fabrication. Technology extends this prehension to a cosmic scale, machines, networks. Reason, an abstract faculty, realizes itself in intellectual tools, computers, algorithms. Social and political life, which requires memory and transmission, is fulfilled through writing, printing, the Internet. Thus, technology does not alter essence, it completes it. Ernst Cassirer, in his Philosophy of the Human as Animal Symbolicum, goes in the same direction. Humans do not merely react to the world, they symbolize and transform it through cultural forms, of which technology is one modality. Technology is one of the ways through which humans make themselves human, by objectifying and mastering their environment. 3. Beyond alienation, technology as liberation and as an assumed risk. This realization is not naive. It involves a risk. Technology can become autonomous and reduce humans to a mere resource. But precisely because humans are technical by nature, they remain capable of reflecting on their technology, of reorienting it, of limiting it. The synthesis is not naive optimism. It asserts that technology realizes humans insofar as they remain masters of their reflexive and ethical essence. The true transformation is not technical but metatechnical, the philosophical capacity to think technology, to make it a means rather than an end. Conclusion of the part. Ultimately, technological development does not transform humans in the sense of an ontological mutation or a mere quantitative variation, it realizes them. Humans are beings whose essence includes technicality. Technology is the historical unfolding of this essence. It prolongs, completes, and fulfills what nature has left in potential. Thus, the initial question, does technological development transform humans, finds its answer in an overcoming. No, it does not transform them, it accomplishes them, provided that humans remain faithful to their reflexive vocation and do not allow themselves to be absorbed by their own creations. The ultimate problematic thus becomes, how, being technical by nature, can humans prevent their technical realization from becoming their own obsolescence? General conclusion. Does technological development transform humans? The seemingly simple question has revealed itself to be profoundly ambiguous, because the verb transform covers heterogeneous realities, quantitative variation, ontological mutation, or fulfillment of an essence. First, we acknowledge that technology does indeed modify the concrete conditions of human existence. It accelerates rhythms, expands the space of relationships, extends lifespan, multiplies connections and available knowledge. These quantitative changes are so massive that they redraw the very texture of daily life. Humans live faster, farther, longer, more connected. Yet this transformation remains, in a sense, superficial. It affects the accidents of existence without reaching substantial form. This is why the antithesis could forcefully assert that humans are not fundamentally altered, they remain mortal, finite, natal, plural, and vulnerable beings. Neither the extension of life nor corporeal hybridization eliminates the deep anthropological structure described by Heidegger, being toward death, and by Arendt, the condition of natality and mortality. Technology surrounds humans with an ever more sophisticated halo of artifacts, but it does not metamorphose what they are in their most proper being. It prolongs them, sometimes to the point of creating the illusion of overcoming. It is precisely this tension that leads to the synthesis. Technology does not transform humans because it is already inscribed in their essence. Humans have always been technical beings, animals who compensate for their biological nakedness through tools, who externalize their functions, who complete by art what nature has left unfinished. As Aristotle indicated, techne completes physis. As Ernst Kapp emphasized, it projects organs into the world. As the very history of humanity confirms, from the hand that shapes flint to the algorithm that anticipates our desires, humans realize themselves by fabricating. Technology is therefore neither accident, nor absolute threat, nor radical mutation. It is the historical mode through which humans actualize what they are in potential. Yet a decisive question remains, one that goes beyond the mere observation of fulfillment. If humans are technical by nature, how can we avoid this fulfillment becoming alienation? How can we prevent the tool, initially a means of liberation, from turning into a master and reducing its creator to the status of mere standing reserve or obsolete? The answer lies neither in Luddite refusal of technology nor in uncritical enthusiastic adherence to transhumanism, but in the reflexive capacity that is also part of human essence, philosophy itself, as thought about technology, as ethical and political vigilance over its uses. Thus, technological development does not transform humans in the sense of making them become other, it realizes them, sometimes magnificently, sometimes dangerously, by unfolding their technical vocation. The real question is therefore no longer whether technology changes humans, but whether humans will remain, in the face of their own creations, human enough to continue asking what it means to be transformed by techniques.